I would like to introduce you to the 1091 ashore Humboldt Bay near the Samoa Cookhouse, the Maritime Museum, and the Timber Heritage Museum. This ship was awarded several battle stars for service in 2 wars. During World War II, it landed troops during the Battle of Okinawa. During the Korean War, it was retrofitted with a medical lab to help prevent the spread of wartime disease. It's said that it even went behind enemy lines in North Korea on covert missions. It witnessed early atomic bomb testing in the Pacific Islands. Now, there were a little over 1,000 of these ships built during World War II, and yet, as far as is known, there are only 2 that remain. This ship is one of those 2. And what makes this story even more remarkable is a small but dedicated crew of military veterans who have been volunteering their time for over a decade to keep this historic ship from collapsing into a pile of rust and scrap metal. And that 1091 crew has graciously granted my request to board this ship with my camera to give us a tour of this historic ship from top to bottom and to tell us how it ended up in Humboldt Bay as a fishing vessel. So I invite you to join me as I climb aboard this last of its kind historic ship and meet the hardy 1091 crew right here on Humboldt Outdoors. Requesting permission to come aboard.
Welcome aboard the 1091. Nice to have you aboard. Come on up.
Well, thanks for having me, John. It is a thrill to be up here. I've seen this ship from afar, so finally I get to walk on board the ship.
Yeah, it's a work in progress.
Can you give me just a quick rundown of the history of this ship?
Sure. World War II was in Okinawa. Okinawa was a pretty rough place. There was a lot of kamikaze action, and this boat was there. It was landing troops on Okinawa.
Wow.
After that, it went to Tokyo Bay to clear mines and deliver troops to various parts of Japan after the surrender. Then in 1946, it went to Bikini Atoll for atomic bomb tests. In 46, it went to Korea as an epidemiological control vessel. And this vessel was set up with doctors, with a full laboratory, with laboratory technicians, and it went wherever it was needed to take its samples and to develop vaccines or whatever else was needed. And it was the only one the Navy ever had, and that makes it really unique. After the Korean War, the LSIL 1091 flew drones, and they had a launching ramp on the bow, and they drew 16-foot wingspan drones for anti-aircraft fire practice. It worked out really well. It was the last job the boat had, and it was the smallest aircraft carrier in the Navy. After that, it became a fishing cannery vessel. After Navy didn't need it anymore, a guy from Seattle bought it. And then when he sold it, it was purchased by a local guy who used it to fish albacore.
Oh, out of Humboldt Bay.
Out of Humboldt Bay, right off the coast. After he decided he couldn't afford to fish albacore anymore, it's been a museum vessel under various guises since then. So we're taking care of safety issues and leaks so the boat doesn't deteriorate any farther any faster.
So tell me about how it came up with the name of 1091. What does 1091 mean?
Well, 1091 means that it was the 1091 that was built.
Oh, okay. Out of how many?
Well, there was probably maybe 1,200 total, somewhere.
Plus or minus.
Yeah.
So this was the, okay.
This was at the end of the run, toward the end of the war, and they decided they had enough and didn't need any more. This particular vessel was used to transport troops. It would take 200 troops anywhere, basically, within 4 or 5 days.
And it could land the troops right onto a beach.
It could land the troops right on the beach, that's right.
All probably while under fire while that was all going.
Sometimes that was true. Quite often it was true.
Okay, so are there very many of these old ships remaining?
No, no. There's only 2 that are remaining in about this condition. And as you can see, this one has a really interesting history.
Yes.
And we hope to save that history and let people understand what it was. Hopefully we'll be able to bring this boat back to what it was, either in Korea or in World War II, or a combination of both, and then have our museum and our place for veterans. Now we're going to take you on a tour of the ship, and we're going to start from the highest point right up there, and let's go.
Great, I'll follow you, John. So John is going to take us up to the highest point of the ship, and then we're going to work our way all the way down to the lowest point, down around the engine rooms.
The actual steering system is in here, and the officers, whoever was running the boat, usually stood on the top. And we'll go up there and look. All right, this is where the ship was steered from. The officers or whoever was in charge of the vessel at that particular watch would be up here, and they would be able to see everything around them. They'd be able to look up to see aircraft overhead. They would have a speaking tube so they could talk to the person that was actually at the wheel down below. They would also have a ship's talker, which is a guy with headphones, so that he could talk to the engine room and talk to other parts of the ship.
I notice we're surrounded by heavy steel in this. Is that to protect the crew that were in here?
This would protect the crew from what they call shrapnel or splinters.
Oh, I see. So if a bomb landed on the deck and the shrapnel came out, they would be protected in this.
Even if it landed in the water out there, it would still throw stuff. Ray, let's go inside the ship. We're going to start with the wheelhouse.
Okay, I'll follow you, John.
Okay. Be careful. There's one thing I'd like to show you before we go into the wheelhouse. These are gun tubs. There's 2 in the back, 2 in the front on this deck, and 1 way up in the bow. They had 20mm machine guns on these gun tubs, and they were primarily for aircraft protection. Let's go to the wheelhouse. Here we are at the wheelhouse. We were right above here before.
Oh, wow.
And this is now where the ship is being steered from. The officers who were actually in command of the ship would be right above us, and they would be talking to this area through a speaking tube. This is the speaking tube that's supposed to go up on top.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all bronze. Let me put this down. Now, originally in World War II, this wheel wasn't here.
Okay.
So all of this was put in Japan before Korea when they were making this into an epidemiological control vessel. Up here we have the alarm systems. If they wanted to say battle stations, they'd ring the alarm. 2 guys were down here, 1 to steer and 1 to relay communications. The course was determined here. This is a gyro compass repeater.
Okay.
This would let the engine room know how fast to run the engines and which direction to run them. It's incompleted, but we have all of the parts for it.
So this didn't actually control the engine. This sent a message down to
That's
the person in the engine room.
And remember we talked about redundancy?
Yes.
We have the headphone guy up there, here. There's a headphone guy in the engine room too.
Okay.
And a headphone guy in the steering compartment, way back at the back of the boat.
Wow. Oh, wow.
So you can never tell what's going to happen in a battle, so you have all of these options.
Redundancy.
Redundancy, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Why are there these sort of plates, these metal plates covering up the portholes?
Well, these are what they call battle covers, and they would keep shrapnel and or splinters from coming through the windows and hurting the people in the wheelhouse.
During battle?
During battle. Wow. Now, interestingly enough, these windows are in here so that in really bad stormy weather, the captain can be down here instead of up there looking through the ports. However, the guy who's steering only looks at the compass repeater. He doesn't look outside. He doesn't care. The captain tells him where to go, and he says, okay, I'll make sure the numbers are right on this thing.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah. All right, here we are. We're done with the wheelhouse. A lot more to see, and Don's waiting for you in the chart room.
All right. Thanks. I'll see you later on down in the ship.
You bet.
Hi, Don. Hey, thanks for meeting me here. Boy, this room is pretty small.
This is the chart room. This is where the ship's navigator would use various navigation tools to establish where the ship is at any point in time and plot its future course.
Why was this room right next to the wheelhouse?
Because it was where they could get and give information back and forth to the captain very easily, because the captain was right up above us. Let's go down and look at the radio room.
All right, I'll follow you, Don.
Watch yourself going down this ladder. Be careful about this. Knock your head on that very easily.
Okay, Don is taking us down to the main deck. Now, this is the area where the crew did most of their work, where they ate, where they socialized. The troops that were being transported generally didn't come into this main deck area. They were mostly kept below. And later on, we'll be going down below to see what it was like down in the troop holds. Huh. Wow, what a place.
This is the radio room. This is very close to the original radio room that was on the ship, as it was in World War II. We're very lucky to get a hold of this old equipment to help us restore this particular room. This is called the 1MC. It's ship-wide communication, so that each one of these represent a particular space in the ship, and that's how you turn a communication on to that. So you would turn those switches, you would speak into this, and they would hear it in that particular space of the ship. This was a troop carrier. This landed troops on the beach. And so the communication between the captain, the people in the engine room, the navigator, and the people who commanded the troops was very, very important. That's all I got for you, Ray. Carl's waiting for you in the galley.
Great. Thanks again, Don. This has been very enlightening. Okay, we'll see you on the ship.
Hey, down here, we're going to show you the galley. This is the galley. This is where the ship cook prepared and served the food for the crew only. And there's a crew of 24, and all the troops that were being ferried from island to island and beach to beach had their own K rations, but this is for crew only.
So the soldiers had to go eat their K rations down
Yeah, on their
bottom
bunks down below. I can imagine the troops weren't too excited about what they were going to eat. They were probably nervous having to crash the next beach coming up.
So the sailors would get their food, and then where did they go after they got their food?
They would go to the mess decks. And if you'd like to see the mess decks, I'll be glad to show it to you.
Take me. I'd love to see the mess decks. Let's
All
go.
right,
I'll follow
all right,
you.
all right. So the sailors would have their tray, and there were 4 tables lined up here during chow. They'd be eating and socializing as such. During the heat of the battle, when these ships are crashing the beach, this would be a battle dressing station as such. And well, that's it for the mess deck. And if you'd like to come down the passageway here, we have other compartments to observe. Again, this is the ladder going up to the bridge. This is the captain's quarters, and this is where the captain and the executive officer slept, and it's located here on account of the easy access to the bridge and centrally located, so it's easy access to other parts of the ship. And on this side of the ship, we have the ship's office. And this is where the yeoman worked. The yeoman was the ship's secretary. And he did all the clerical, payroll, and anything else that needed paperwork. Chances are the storekeeper worked in here too. And the storekeeper's job was to make sure there was a supply of, uniforms, galley gear, anything to make the ship function. Okay, so that's it for spaces on the main deck. And now we'll go below deck and we will look at some of the engineering spaces along with some of the troop spaces.
Okay, for the second part of the ship tour, we'll be going down into the lower decks. In the lower decks, we'll find the troops compartments, the crew compartments, also the engine room and the steering room. It's dark down there, so Carl had to go turn on some auxiliary lighting, but for now I have a flashlight. Okay, let's go. John, great. You got the lights going here. Much better. I can
Oh,
see.
yeah.
Oops. Wow.
That's a little wrinkle in the deck there.
So this is my first place on the lower decks. What is this place?
Well, this is what we call troop number 3. And there's 4 compartments like this and 200 troops total. 60 guys in here, sleeping on bunks like this, 4 high. They would be in here with all of their equipment, their backpacks, their rifles, whatever guns they had. They would have their own food.
Now, Carl was telling me earlier, they didn't even eat with the crew. They would eat their rations down here. Huh?
That's right. They would eat what they brought with them. If they knew that they were going to have to spend a day on the ship, they'd bring a day's ship rations. If they had to spend 3 days on the ship, they'd bring 3 days worth of rations, plus whatever they had to go to the beach with. Oh. And it would be C rations, K rations, whatever, all cold, all out of cans. It all comes of being Marines or infantry. That's what happens. And it was crowded. It was hot, particularly in the Mediterranean and in the South Pacific. The smells were horrendous. Half of these guys were scared and sweaty. The other half were seasick and vomiting. And everybody was just understood that they were going onto a hostile beach.
Were the troops ever allowed to go up on the higher decks?
Occasionally, with the permission of the captain and their own officers.
These soldiers are pretty much stuck in this hold for 3-4 days. What would they do while they were down here?
Well, polish their weapons and talk amongst themselves about what was going on. Sure, there was lots of gambling going on, because there usually was. Card games and craps and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Now, it really strikes me being down in here and realizing the reason this whole ship exists was for these soldiers to be transported.
Yeah, soldiers, we call them infantry or Marines. That's basically what these things were for, is to keep the troops relatively secure until they got to the beach. And, you know, I feel for them. Not a position I would want to be in, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But they did it. They did it bravely, and they all did their job. Carl's waiting for you in the engine room, which is the next place you're going to visit.
Okay, great. I go up these stairs here?
Yeah, you go up these stairs and go aft.
Okay.
That means to the back of the boat.
Well, thank you for the instruction in nautical terms. Thanks, John. I'll see you around later on in the show.
Yes, you will.
This is the engine room.
Wow, now let's start with this. What is this panel?
We're standing in front of the main electrical panel.
I noticed on this panel, it says date 1944. So this is the original electrical panel on this ship? Oh my gosh. And then this panel would distribute the electrical charge throughout the ship.
But what energizes this panel is right behind you is the main generator.
Would it still operate today if you ran it?
Yes.
So all these other engines I see in here were completely separate that would run the propellers, basically.
Correct. Pushes the ship through the water.
Wow. Okay, let's go look at that. Oh, yeah, I see right away. These are much bigger than the ship generator engine.
Oh, indeed.
Yeah.
They propel the ship through the water. They are hooked to the shaft that run through the shaft alley to the propellers on the back of the ship.
Would the crew take orders from the officers up on the bridge?
And the crew in the engine room would get a signal from the bridge, from the engine order telegraph that would alert them. They would make the proper adjustments to the engine speed.
They didn't steer the ship from this room.
That's correct. The machinery for steering was in a compartment referred to as after steering.
Show me the way.
Okay.
Come on down, Ray. You move aft, down through this passageway into the after steering room.
I'm going to go ahead and get behind the wheel. There we go. Okay.
This is after steering. This is where the ship can be steered.
You know, one thing I'm not real clear of, there was a steering system up in the wheelhouse and a steering system down here. I don't quite understand why you needed two.
This is emergency after steering, is what it's called.
So they wouldn't normally use this, except if...
This is where the ship can be steered in case of an emergency and the steering gear on the bridge is knocked out. Reach over here, turn this wheel, which would engage or disengage the steering wheel. And then,
wow.
Yeah.
So there's a crew member with a headset on, and the captain would say, turn a certain degree, and a crew member would look at the compass and then go, if there's no electricity and get set. Wow, that's pretty interesting, Don.
Most naval ships have an emergency after steering. Everything you see in here is original World War II equipment. We repainted it, the inside of it, and then we started working on the after deck up above. You know, right now our priorities are to get the deck watertight so we don't have leakage in here.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I've never gotten to actually steer the rudders of a ship before. I know if I can get out, it's kind of a tight squeeze here. I did it.
So, Don, this troop compartment is a lot smaller than the one that John showed me earlier.
It's the furthest aft troop compartment. Had about 46 people in it.
Okay.
All in a bunk similar to some of the other troop compartments
The one that John showed me, yeah.
Yeah. And when it was time to go, they'd come up this ladder and head forward. Ray, so you can experience for yourself, why don't you take a walk up the ladder and up through the path that the troops would actually take when it was time to disembark.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea because this was the furthest back of the ship, so this would have been the longest walk.
Longest walk.
Okay, I'll take your advice. Let me try it.
Hey Ray, you in there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow,
come on out and
what
we'll
a
talk
place.
about this.
Okay.
Come in here, I gotta grab something.
We'll work around. These guys are working, so we could film around them.
Busy people.
Yeah. So tell me about this place, if you will.
All right. Well, these double doors are the entrance to the forecastle, and that's where the ramp was that allowed the troops to go down to the beach. As soon as the ramp was down, or ramp was open, and the doors were open, they'd start coming. They'd get the order to hit the beach.
And What kind of gear were they carrying with them while
Well,
they were lined up here?
Probably 60 to 70 pounds of gear in their pack, which includes food and extra ammunition and stuff like that. They'd have whatever weapon they were assigned to. If they're infantry, usually it would be a rifle. As soon as the boat touches, the doors open, the ramp's down, they get the order to go down the ramp and onto the beach. They'll be able to get 200 guys onto the beach in about 3 minutes. That's quick. They're going at a dead run down the ramp, side by side, 2 at a time, but there's just a continuous stream of them going down there. So they're very organized, and they've practiced this before, so they know how to do it.
So here's these 200 infantry Marines here waiting to go onto the beach. Any idea what's going through their mind?
Well, at this point, all of them will be a little scared, but most of them will be going, let's get our job done. And, you know, they're, in one sense, happy to be off the boat because this is a misery drill anyhow.
Yeah.
And once they get on the beach, they're doing what they're trained to do. So I think their main point of view is let's get this done.
Yeah.
All right, now that we've talked about how we get the guys from berthing up to here, I'll take you inside here and we'll show you a few little odds and ends.
Yes, let's go.
This is called the forecastle, as in forecastle on ancient boats. And it's at the forwardmost end of the boat, right at the bow, where the thing comes together in a point.
All right.
And we're using it right now as a tool room. But originally, this area had the ramp, which allowed the troops to get to the beach. And the ramp started right over there, and it went down probably 8 feet until just above the water line. This deck right here has been put in after the fact so that this could be used for other things. Let's go back in. I guess the guys are about ready to take a break and we can have some donuts and, you know.
Yeah, I see them going in there. Let's go join them.
We'll just discuss what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, gee, you guys, thanks. After spending all this time on the ship with you, I've really become fond of the old 1091 too, and I can see why you're all so fond of it.
Oh, it's not only the ship, it's the crew. The comradeship between other veterans. And we all support each other.
Yes, that's right. And anybody else who wants to join our crew will be part of us, and we support them as well.
Well, I gotta say, when you make this into a historic ship people can visit, you're all excellent tour guides because you've given me wonderful tours of this ship.
We're proud of it. It doesn't look like much now.
You know, it looks a little rough from the outside. You look at it and there are rust streaks all over it. But the ship girder itself is in good shape. All you have to do is take care of the little things that are critical right now.
So when you get this ship up to where you want it as a historic ship and your people are allowed to come back on here, what do you want them to feel and experience when they come on board this old World War II ship?
All pieces of its life.
And not only the military heritage, but the fisheries heritage.
So you all knew the previous owner of the ship, Dr. Davis, right?
Oh yes. He's a member of the crew.
And he ran this as a fishing boat.
That's correct. He fished albacore with it.
You still have a lot of work ahead of you to get this ship back to where you want it, don't you?
Yeah, we do.
Definitely.
I've seen you guys up there working. It's hard work. You're down on your knees scraping and scrubbing.
We can only do it for a couple hours a day. Run out of the Wheaties. No more steam. One of the most important parts, and Don touched on it, is for us to be able to support veterans who would benefit from hanging around with a bunch of other vets.
That's right.
And anybody else who wants to join our crew, we support them as well.
More the merrier.
Thanks again, guys. I really appreciated this. Anyway, I'm going to get going, and I'll let you guys get back to work. Thanks again. We'll see you probably in a month or two.
Excellent.
And I got a lot of editing to do. All right. Later.
Bye. Fun is over. Now we gotta go to work.
Time to get to work.
It is what it is. Extra life on this boat.
All right, let's do it.
I'll show you where that is.